Well, I want to introduce a couple ideas out there besides just investing in silver. And if you don't have the money to invest in brokerage accounts or anything, I don't trust them long term. But quite obviously, not everything on a piece of paper is going to go to zero. I think the government bonds are probably going to be the big things that's going to go down. And community bonds, municipal bonds, I was mentioning before. But a lot of things on a piece of paper are actually really backed by hard assets, whether they're agricultural commodities like oil, silver, gold. If they're really backed by the assets themselves, that paper is as good as the commodity itself. So in that instance, the paper can be good. It probably might be best for the average person just to grow gardens or go ahead with the seed trays. This is growing sprouting seeds. I have a bunch of those things, and I actually have a 5-gallon pail of seeds that I could sprout, which make probably, I don't know, 100 gallons or fill up a whole house full of freaking stuff. But it's really big. When the seeds sprout, they get quite a bit. But agriculture, and I'm going to actually point out a couple of surprise stocks that went up a hell of a lot in recent times. It has to do with marijuana and hemp, believe it or not. I think that product is a good product. If there's going to be a pump and dump type, I don't want to say it's a dump operation, but if there's something that's really good to pump up and get the middle class really investing in, it's probably going to be hemp and medicinal marijuana more than anything. But we got one problem that came up, and this is a chart off of the National Weather Service showing like the recent drought situation. And actually this chart hasn't changed much. It's been exceptionally dry, extreme drought, or an exceptional drought, or severe drought over most of the country. It's been going on for weeks. So quite obviously that means that the price of food is going to go up quite a bit. I'm not sure exactly if it's a great time to just jump in that right now, but what I would look for is some of these oddball stocks, maybe to do some research on hemp, because I'm going to give you an example here. This is actually Medbox. They sell something related to the medicinal marijuana industry. And if you look at this stock, this is only going back 5 days. About 5 days ago, it was under $4. Under $4. This is stock ticker. It's got it right here someplace. Medicap, I believe it is. Medbox Inc. Stock ticker MDBX. It went from $4 to $200 inside of a couple days. That's crazy. I don't know what caused that to happen. But there's actually a lesson to be learned in this. First off, there's other things out there besides silver to invest in. I would recommend you put down, if you see something like this, maybe you want to put a couple $100 down on it. I don't know what it's going to do. Quite obviously, it'd be nice to put $10,000 down on this if you knew this and sell it for $500,000 a couple days later. That's a crazy gain. Maybe that's when you set up the company in Cyprus as this tax haven or something, or BVI. But that's another story, and I don't want to get too much into that stuff because I really can't say too much on YouTube about a lot of things. This is actually fact. This is not fiction. This thing actually went from $4 a share to $200 a share in a couple of days in the last 5 days. It just happened this week. And, that's just like you could think if you buy silver 10 years ago or, over 10 years ago at $4 an ounce. Right now it's sitting at 32, 33, and you're hoping it might go up to 100 or maybe 200. Well, that's what could have, you could have just been doing this whole, maybe silver might be $200 an ounce a couple of years from now. I don't know, but you'd have to wait a dozen years if you bought it at $4. Here, this happened all inside of a couple of days. But the interesting lesson is, in the next day, it went from $200 a share down to $100 a share, and then crashed to 45. So this is like my basic common sense warning out to people about, expectations. Because, if this was silver going to $200 a share, those guys would be telling you it's going to 400. Maybe it would go back to 100. I don't know. That's why you always want to secure some gains. But I'll tell you this. In reality, the dollar is looks like it's toast. I mean, long range, it definitely does. And 66, it's supposedly a fact. I don't know where to, how well it is, but it's supposed to be 66%, about 2/3 of the wealth in the world is actually in dollars in one form or another. So if the dollar just goes down, all those people lose out. And that may be the case. I don't know. But in the case of China, we do know they're buying gold and silver like crazy. The published figures on how many reserves they have may be BS. They might actually have more gold than the United States. If you look up in Wikipedia, it'll tell you the United States has the most gold, followed by Germany, followed by France and Italy. And China's, Russia are down there a ways. I don't know about that. Because, like I said, I've seen a lot of things like not gold, but like these various types of isotopes that people had that had tons of it, and they're in vaults in Russia, and nobody's counting that stuff. Nobody even knows about it, and it was real. It had the double warehouse certificate stuff. Now, I could make some big claims like actually I do know some weird crap, and actually, this girl's carrying a grease gun, so I put this up here as a reminder of what Mark Faber says, what's going to come down in the future. We're going to have to probably fight for our physical possessions the way, I don't know, we might be going to Mad Max territory at some point in time. That may be the case. But, I would like to, but I don't know if just somebody, the one I know that really has a lot of contacts and a lot of crazy stuff, I don't know how much he'd want to put on the internet, but it made me aware there is basically a hidden oligarchy out there in another financial world that's not really, the public doesn't really see. There's a lot of different things that go on behind the scenes. There's special things that are open only to certain clients and stuff like that. Being very sketchy on this crap, but I mean, really, I'm going to show one thing because I think some people thought I was crazy when I mentioned this before about some of the gold claims we have here in the country. This is in, let's use this other one first. This is in California. Pull this up, damn it. This is in California. Here it is. And it's actually, you see these little squares on this map? This is actually a map that shows all the claims that are out in California, gold claims. And like, here's Los Angeles County down here. Palmdale is down here, and this is Ridgecrest. So I don't know if you're familiar with California, but there's a lot of claims right here, and this is Kern County. But these claims have been in families. Like some of the biggest claims they're held in a Santiago family. It holds a lot of them. This is public information. It's not a big secret or nothing like that. But they're supposedly the estimates of gold that they have in these claims is like tremendous. And I personally think that the United States probably does have a lot of gold. It's just that it's not going to help the public in any way, but I think the elite do have a lot of gold, and it's stored some damn place. I know it's not in Fort Knox, but it's not really an emergency if that the United States needed to get gold, they could just dig it up. They actually have the means. I mean, if there was a bona fide emergency, I mean, they can just call upon the military to dig up all the gold, and there is. I mean, there's a lot of gold in the ground here. I mean, they can go down hundreds of feet, and they get quite a bit out of it. It's just like black magnetite iron ore or something like that, and there's quite a bit of gold in it. But there's so many acres and acres and acres and square miles of claims out there that have been proven for so long that I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I think the problem is if you're holding the fiat dollar, that's going to be the guy that's holding the bag that's left with the worthless crap. But as far as the United States not having enough gold, I think I'd like to dispel that rumor. I think we do have a lot of gold. Like these are some of the claims close up during Kern County, and there's like loads of claims all over the country. Now I was more familiar with this due to some other financial stuff I was working on. This is like Gold Dust 1, 2, Gold Dust 3, 4, Gold Pan 1, 2, 3, and 4. But this is public information. But it's like, for instance, for like all the technology that's in the military and all the manpower for instance, if the United States came up to a national emergency that they needed to have tons of gold, and that was the problem, they could just dig it up. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. I think they would be able. There's too much manpower out there, and there's too many machines. And in actuality, America is probably the biggest industrial powerhouse in the world. I mean, yeah, I know China's coming up on strong, but I don't know. I just would think that if there really was a problem where the elite in this country needed gold, they'd get it no problem. I just don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the problem is if the average person keeps holding too many fiat dollars and they're depending upon muni bonds and government bonds for their retirement, they're going to get screwed, you know. Now, as far as the situation with the Middle East, you know, it looks like what's going on in Gaza, like Israel already called up a whole pile of troops and stuff like that, reservists and everything else. So it looks like there's going to be a much hotter conflict going on. I think a lot of this is probably being pushed now because Obama's president. I think if Romney became president, this thing in Israel probably wouldn't have happened just yet because there might have been a coordinated attack on Iran. And I know it's not exactly over the the nuclear program. I know it's partly over that, but the real reason they would be attacking Iran is over the oil bourse. You know, the oil market. The oil market that actually was started in 2007, but now is getting bigger and bigger, and China's using it and stuff like that. It's direct competition to the London market, the London Exchange, and the New York market, the Iranian oil bourse. And you can bet, you know, if you can make a bet, I don't think anybody would bet you against this, but, you know, if there's an attack on Iran, one of the first targets would be that marketplace. You can bet on that. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be the nuclear structures in a Revolutionary Guard or whatever the hell it is. It would be that oil bourse taking out that financial nerve center. Because actually what happened in Iraq, when Iraq was taken over, one of the first things they did was, they set up the bank, and they set up where oil was traded in U.S. dollars, Same type of deal that was a problem in Libya, too. So we do know the deal, and I think the Iranian regime is really bad news anyway. I mean, we just don't see them close up, and people can't stand them there anyway. So, but the real problem is it's a major threat to the U.S. dollar. Now, you consider like Iran as one country, but you also have an OPEC nation like Venezuela that is, openly trying to knock down the U.S. dollar. They took their gold back, which is they have the right to do. But, the coup that was against Chavez in 2003 failed. And I know he's had cancer and he's had the problems with that and everything. He had chemotherapy and he's got bald head now from chemo. But, he's still around. So he's a thorn in the side of the powers that be in the United States. So, I think they're getting totally desperate. And, considering what's happening here in the Middle East recently with Gaza, that's, I noticed oil's crept up a little bit. It might be over that, too. Just any kind of tensions in the Middle East can start driving up oil. And I do think that's going to be the big thing that's going to keep gold going, and also silver. Silver's going to move up. So, the game is actually starting right about now. The fiat dollar is not the thing to bet on. I mean, I'm not just being a cheerleader, but that's quite obvious. I want to point out this one guy here, Igor Panarin. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's the guy, basically, they put it out. He actually did this work back in 1998. He's like KGB, and he's like, he knows about information warfare, psychology, and geopolitics. It has it right here on Wikipedia. It's right off of Wikipedia. Russian professor, is garbage. But anyway, he had, he made this prediction that the USA would split into 6 parts in 2010. It was going to be these different areas. I don't know if it shows it on here or what, but straight off of Wikipedia. It never happened, though, yet. But, when I looked at this secession from the United States by all these different countries, it may come about at one point in time. Actually, I'm not for the secession movement at all, because even though I signed it. I signed it because I don't like all the BS rules coming out of Washington, D.C. They don't have the right to rule over the states. If the states want to have industrial hemp in their state, Washington can't come by and say, no, you can't, because the Constitution limits the power of Washington, D.C. So, they're just a bunch of tyrants run by the oil companies, quite obviously, and that's one of the main reasons that there's going to be a war with Iran. But, also looking at it from this other angle, this Igor Panarin talking about, the United States splitting up into 6 parts. In other words, the southern United States might be part of Mexico, the Midwest might be part of Canada, the California western states be part of China, and the northeastern states would be part of Europe, and Alaska would go back to Russia, and, with all the oil wells and the Liberty rig and all this other garbage, and Hawaii would go to, China. But, the guy is dreaming. That's what he wants. But when they bring some guy out like that, this Igor Panarin on the alternative media, I wonder why people are cheering him on, because he's evil as crap and he has absolutely no good for the future of anybody that lives in the United States. He might be against the Western elite, but he sure as hell ain't for the people in the United States. That's for sure. So it's a game they're playing. But I would suggest to people, maybe take a look at a couple of these stock tickers. Maybe if this thing falls back down to, I don't know, $5 or something. It's called Medbox. Maybe you should buy it. I don't know. If it goes down to $5, I would. I think that might be a smart buy, because I don't know what caused it to go from $4 all the way up to $200 in a few days. This might be one to watch. I actually have this stock, and I bought it for like 1.6 cents a share, and it was up to about 9 cents a share at one time. Now it's down to 6, but I didn't put much money on it. It was just a small bet. In retrospect, I wish I put a bunch of money on it and just dumped it. But some of these things that are brand new entrepreneurs out there in the field with hemp and medicinal marijuana, they may be very good investments. But if you have a brokerage account, I would just put a small amount of money on some of these things. Maybe do some research. Maybe see if some of these things pull back. Keep an eye on them, and put a little bit of money in them if you think you think it's a good bet. Because agriculture, I think, is a solid bet for 2013 and 2014. That's what Jim Rogers is doing. I think both Jim Rogers and Mark Farber are correct. Jim Rogers is more emphasis. He's got gold and some silver, I think, too, but he's got gold. He's more emphasis is on agriculture, but I think he's correct. And, the commodities will all go together. In other words, oil goes up, gold goes up. When oil goes up, it costs more money to farm because it's an energy-intensive operation. Plus, it's also all the pesticides are from the farm, the oil industry that are produced. So, they're both correct. And there's actually some word out there, like even if less than 10% of the U.S. dollars were dumped on the market, you don't have to dump all of them. That would cause the dollar to collapse itself. So the dollar actually is in a precarious situation. But, having been around with precarious businesses, and they were always ready to fall apart and close their doors, and how they're going to hold together and all this kind of crap. And they always say the guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's doing, and somehow he always made shitloads of money. I can almost compare that to the way the United States dollar is going to be, and also the elite in this country. They sure seem to have a way of keeping things rolling and not falling apart as quick as you think. And but I'm pretty damn certain that the elite in this country are heavily loaded down with real assets like gold and silver, farmland, and investments in oil companies, oil rigging, and everything else out there that people will need. In other words, people either they're going to, these are things that you just can't do without. Food requirements and energy requirements. So those are two things people just can't do without. So, the elite are guaranteed invested in that in a real way. So they're not going to lose out. But as an individual, basically, if you don't have money to go play around, well, I don't call it playing around, but move some money into brokerage accounts, I would, just keep stockpiling, but not just silver, mainly on food and also ways you can produce energy, like have a generator. And this motorcycle things I always show. I always like the motorcycles, but it may be a very smart thing to get one of those under 50cc motorcycles, like the scooters, if it's 49cc's or below, or you put a 49cc engine on a mountain bike. You got a whole nother set of rules out there where it's not so stringent, helmet laws and all this other garbage. It changes the whole scenario a lot differently. You can use the bicycle lane if you're not really a, you know, you know, vehicle like that. So used on, like if you're a bicycle, basically you can use the bicycle lane, that type of stuff. So if the gasoline does go to $8 in a gallon, these products I'm talking about, like these 49cc scooters and 49cc bikes, engines that go on bikes, they might skyrocket in price big time. They may, just like the old Honda Civics, the first ones that came out, they went up in big bucks when they had the gas was going up over $4 a gallon a few years ago. So if you start seeing $8 a gallon, you probably want to get these things ahead of time. The 49cc engine for a bicycle or whatever, if you don't want to get into motorcycles. I personally like the motorcycles, but you might figure a couple $100 on a bicycle adaptable engine, like an engine that goes on a bicycle for $180. Stuff out there. You might want to try something like that. You got some emergency backup transportation, and if you keep 10 gallons of gasoline on hand, your range on 10 gallons of gasoline might be, a couple thousand miles versus just, I don't know, 150, 200 miles or 220 miles or whatever it is. Big difference, big difference. So, these types of things you want to get ahead of time. But if you're looking into stock tickers, take a look at some of those two stock tickers I was showing, because there might be a pullback in them. I don't know. Could be. If there is a pullback, you might want to put a couple $100 down or $500 or something and see what it does. It might do a triple real fast one day unexpectedly.